Are you tired of working at the bedside as a nurse? Then I would encourage you to stay tuned and watch today's video, because I will be sharing with you what I have been doing since I quit bedside nursing about 8 years ago. Stay tuned. So a little bit about my background. So I am a registered nurse here in the US who had my bachelor's degree nursing program in Ghana at the University of Cape Coast. I then got the opportunity to travel to the US in the year 2013, and I was able to register to take the NCLEX exam and become a licensed registered nurse here in the US since 2014. So I have been a registered nurse since 2014, and unfortunately I do not work any longer as a bedside nurse. If you haven't watched my video about becoming a nurse in the US, I would encourage you to watch that. I will put the link in the description box below. So go ahead and watch that video if you are looking forward to becoming a registered nurse in the US. So in the year 2014, I passed the NCLEX exam at one sitting, and I started looking for a job. So I got my first interview for the very first nursing job I applied, and I was offered the job like instantly. So I began working as a bedside nurse in May 2014. That was like a month after passing the NCLEX exam. If you haven't watched my video about how to pass your NCLEX exam on the very first try, I would encourage you to use the link in the description box and watch that video if you are preparing to take the NCLEX RN exam and are planning to pass it on the very first try. A little bit about my experience as a bedside nurse here in the US, just so you can get a fair idea of what it was, and then I'll tell you why I decided to quit it and not go back to it. So yes, as a foreign trained nurse, working here in the US as a nurse, I would say it's not easy. The cultural differences, the difference in educational system, and so many other things makes it a little bit challenging for nurses who are trained outside of the US, who end up coming here and end up practicing as a nurse. It's very challenging in the beginning. And for me, I hadn't had much experience after I completed my nursing education back home in Ghana to practice as a nurse prior to traveling to the US. So coming to the US, I was coming in as a fresh graduate who I would say had barely any experience other than the training I received whilst doing my nursing program and all the internships that we did. That was all that my experience was about. So my first job in the US was where I needed to prove myself as a nurse with barely any experience. So you can just imagine how frustrating it can be coming into a new country, not knowing how things are. And the US healthcare system is way advanced than the healthcare system in Ghana. So you can compare the two and imagine how difficult it will be for someone who just graduated to come in and start practicing. So yeah, that's a little bit about the experience I went through in my first year. So yeah, I did bedside nursing for a year and 2 months. I started in May of 2014 and decided to change gears in July 2015. So I quit bedside nursing in July 2015. I will be doing another video to give you a breakdown of all the reasons why I decided to quit. But in today's video, my main focus is to tell you what I have been doing since I quit bedside nursing. So yeah, I have been doing clinical trials and research since I quit bedside nursing in July 2014. So I became tired of the bedside and I needed to look for other options. And here in the US, having a nursing degree alone is just the basic thing that you need to be able to break into different branches in healthcare. It's not that common in other countries, but here in the US, just a nursing degree alone can help you branch into different areas of healthcare and even other other areas which are not even healthcare related. So in my search to look for something different other than bedside, I came across a job titled research nurse specialist in the hospital where I was working before we moved here to Texas. So there were so many jobs with the title research nurse specialist. So I got a little bit curious about it, and I looked more into it by reading online. And I realized that this is something that I may be interested in, even though I hadn't done it before. I didn't know anybody who was doing it. I felt like reading the job description, it was something that I felt would suit me better. So I applied to several of these jobs within my hospital, and luckily I got 2 interviews, and they were all in the same department. So I interviewed for the first job, and I got the offer like a few hours after the job interview. So I didn't even end up doing the interview with the other group. So that is how I ended up in clinical trials, or what most people would say clinical research. But let me give you a little bit more details about what even pushed me further to do clinical trials. So I remember towards the latter months of my stay at the bedside, I had this patient who I was taking care of. He was part of one out of 6 patients I was taking care of on a shift. And this patient, after I had gone in and helped him or something like that, I went back to give him like a soda or something like that, if I recall. And he said he wanted to tell me something, and I was like, okay. So apparently he had looked at some of the notes I had written after I had taken care of him, and I had left the clipboard on his bedside table. So he had looked at my handwriting. So he basically told me that based on how I write, how I dot my I's, how I cross my T's, and how, just like the way I write, he could pick up a lot of things about me. So what most people would say, like a prophecy, he was telling me stuff about me that I would say were pretty much accurate. So I was like, are you a prophet? And he's like, no. And the shocking thing is he doesn't even believe in God. I was like, so how do you know all this about me? And he's like, just by looking at your handwriting, I can tell you all of these. So that even made me curious as to what does he do that he's able to just read handwriting and give you so much accurate information about yourself. So apparently there's this thing called palmistry, and also recently I got to know it's really more of something called graphology for those who read and interpret handwritings. So the palmists are those who can read your palm and tell you something about you, but the graphologist looks at your handwriting and can tell you your personality and other things about yourself. So apparently that was what this man was. So he wasn't a prophet, but anyway, he gave me some good information about myself. And that was the same time I was trying to leave the bedside, and I had already looked into the clinical trials or clinical research area and found this research nurse job. So after he told me that, I was like, okay, then I think I should go ahead and apply for these jobs. I hadn't even applied. So I went ahead, submitted my applications, and like I said before, I got 2 interviews out of several applications, interviewed for the first one and got the job offer. I didn't even have to interview for any other position that I had applied for. So that is how I ended up in clinical trials. And I would say I don't regret leaving the bedside. Sometimes I miss it, but trust me, it's way better at the clinical research field than it was at the bedside. One thing I didn't like about the bedside was that I worked nights when I started working, and I'm not a night person. I cannot work at night, so it was stressful, just that alone. And other than that, all the other things that comes with being a foreign trained nurse, like I said before, made it even hard. So I'm happy that I got to leave the bedside, and I left it forever. So at this point, there's no turning back to bedside nursing. I hope you enjoyed this video, And if you are looking forward to moving away from the bedside, or if you're in nursing school and not sure what you want to do, you don't think you can really like be the one at the bedside, then I would encourage you to look into clinical trials or clinical research or some other fields in healthcare where nurses are really needed, like case management, hospice, utilization review and all that. There's just so many things you can do with your nursing degree other than being at the bedside. So if you found this video insightful, I hope that you will use the comment section and let's get interactive. Share this video with your friends, family, and loved ones who are in the nursing field or who are looking to get into the nursing field but are unsure of what they can do aside being at the bedside. I hope to come your way again with more videos about nursing in the US and every other thing that I do now. Thank you.